Yeah, and out of this 5 maps, we're going to start it off for Hacienda and Hardpoint. And these teams are not familiar to this map so far for this game. I mean, Hacienda is a fairly new map. And as we head on, everyone is moving straight into the hard point, but who will going for the rotation? As we can see, it's spread out a little bit from Dunya Games right now to get good power positions to go towards this P1. But I think they are failing right now as Almighty is now taking them down one at a time. A good double from Zay, but he will be taken down by Irfan J in there from Side in Heaven. Once again, power position has been taken. Possibility of a backstab, and Heaven turns that around against them.
I like it. You know, after 15 seconds is where we start to see Almighty hopping into the point, but it's just a clean engagement on the second floor of Mana that they want to dominate first before, you know, just prematurely stepping into the hard point, making sure they do not allow Dunya Games to take easy frags on them, because if you do not control that second floor of Mana and just play that hard point, you're going to allow your opponents to streak up very early in the game. Almighty doesn't want that, and because they play the game of patience, because they play the game of strategy, they are the ones that sneak away the majority of points from this P1, and an early rotation into P2 where gunfights have to be won back to back. Jeff Pro steps up for the team. Indonesian Pride on the side of Almighty as well. Lion City representing Jeff Pro this time round gets that single slay, but he was aiming for the double though. Sends out the hunter killer drone as well. Jeff Pro with the opportunity slays Fran, and Almighty dominating at the get-go.
Yeah, and Jeff Pro has the highest points in here in terms of kills as well as Heaven, and there's no noobs right here, only Jeff Pro. Zezen in there being taken down by Jeff Pro once again, and good rotations right now as a team. Now, as we look at this, there is not so much of the need for control of spawns because it's in the corner. It is only needed if you will be spawned a little bit too far from the right side of the map. But so far, here comes the push of DG of Dunya Games right now, but it is faltering from the hands of Irfan J.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Dunya Games fell 3-0 against Smart Mega. Are they going to fall 3-0 against Almighty as well? With the way things are going in this hardpoint matchup, it looks like they are getting absolutely shoved onto the ground, and AMT is using them as a mob to wipe up all of the dust. 76-9 total domination so far, but early rotations this time around from the Indonesian side into P3. Warehouse is opened up, but favorable spawns from the Special Forces base will give Almighty the opportunity to shove themselves right back in this hard point, and a pincer maneuver attacking from both sides. Big fight for Clutch King Irfan J. He wins out that gunfight. One more engagement, wins that one as well. Irfan J closes off the backyard, all in the hands of the Clutch King, and the Clutch King alone slays them on back and forth, but Jet Sky still holds the fort for Dunya Games, and they want to turn this into their money hill.
Clutch no break gun in 10 seconds, and that is what you expect from Irfan J once you have him against him. And here comes Jeskai right now going for the kill, and Gonzi as well taking down Shut Up. Now the rotations right now of Almighty a little bit spread out, preparing themselves for the spawns a little bit near to this hill, but the scores right now slowly catching up, but it's not enough to overtake the points of Almighty. Now preparing onto the next hill right now, it is this guy of Heaven already starting it off, but Shut Up is cleaning house from the other side.
Yeah, and the Dunya Games players looking to string all of these points up inside of P4 as well. Observation deck. They do have 2 players on there holding on to the points. Final survivor, Gonzi. Big fight, big win. Irfan J Clutch King taken out. That's a huge fight and a huge investment by Gonzi, playing the game of risk. Although he was the final player left there, didn't want to allow Almighty to run away with this matchup by giving away those free points. He steps on up. He steps on in. Slays out the players of Almighty, but Almighty in their own accord step things up right back as well. Zeze X now, once again, final player on the side of DG. DG just not sustaining their lives out there as decently as they would expect themselves to, and Almighty used that as the perfect opportunity. Continues to slay them out, continues to pick up points. Yes, this match is close, but Almighty is a little superior when it comes to those engagements. But look at the investment that can be brought forth here by the Garudas. They have got 5 of those operators already activated, and they have got Zeze X with the investment, but that's a premature one as he gets snuffed out early.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Even if you're losing engagement, as long as you had the advantage earlier on, but this time the advantage might be on the side of Almighty. Jeskai right now going in for the hit, but they are sticking staking this second floor of this manor, thus opening up onto that next hill will still give them the points. We'll have to find out how much more can DG take this and if they can take this around, because so far they might be able to take the ground floor. Second floor still domination factor for Almighty at this point.
I mean, I've gotten my one first dream fulfilled already. I wanted to see mighty battles between the titans of Garena. But after this, you know, one engagement, I hope that Garena just gets into an agreement with the Indian scene. Because I want to see all of the Indian players take on Garena, man. I've checked out some of the Indian teams and their mechanical skills, their strategy looks quite decent out there on the battlefield. In fact, decent enough to really shut some of those teams on the side of Garena up. And I want to see that battle actually happen out there on the battlefield. Maybe at a promotional, maybe at an invitational. I don't care what it is. We deserve to see that. If it doesn't happen at stage 5, it better happen on a promotional series. Somebody should get this done.
Yeah, somebody should be able to set that up, and you being the voice, AJ, I think a little people will be listening. But there's no listening at that point from Almighty, because Adunya Games has now listened to all those gunshots and now will not be deafened. They will be clear on their objectives. They will be going in for the points. 35 remaining in here in Fran, going in for the side as well. But going back to your point, AJ, I mean, having different regions join in Garena for an invitational, for a show match or whatever, just to showcase how it will fare against these monsters that we have in Arena servers. I mean, that would be awesome. That was one thing that might turn the tides in terms of the meta being used, as well as the tactics that we're seeing right now from the gameplays of this team.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take it up to the next level. I think it's going to break the internet if Garena goes up against India, bro. No, because you've got two fantastic regions. I mean, I'm counting Garena as a whole region when I speak about this context. And India is just filled with crazy talent when it comes to mobile games. And those guys really focus, right? They really want to prove themselves out there on the battlefield. And you can see through some of their strategies and plays as well. And strategy is where it really matters. We've got such a close match between Almighty and Dunya Games in this game as well, just like what we saw in that hardpoint matchup, and in fact the whole series between WDC as well as Blacklist Ultimate earlier on. And I'm very sure we're gonna see the exact same story when India goes up against Garena. It's just fantastic matches, and I love to lose my mind over matches like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of excitement in there, especially as we only see them separately, and that is what's happening right now. We have Indonesia going against Singapore, MSP going against Indonesia server or representative, and they are still going in tie-to-tie, toe-to-toe in terms of scores. Though it's very short, it might be Almighty right now. That would depend on how it will be turned around. 3 seconds remaining, but no, says Almighty. They will stay in there, and they will carry it over probably onto the next hill. It's 152 to 144. Rotation might be in favor of Almighty, but here comes the comeback of Dunya Games.
Oh, this is just too good, man. This matchup between Almighty and Dunya Games, the rotations, the engagements, all perfect, and Heaven's just really slaying out there on the battlefield. I hope to God he can bring his bed over to stage 5 as well if they make it through, if they can represent Garena. Heaven's gonna need that bed, or Heaven's gonna need some sort of adjustment out there so that he can sit in the position that he's just feeling so comfortable with, because we saw him nerfed at Garena Masters at the playoffs. He really couldn't perform as he had to sit down on the gaming chat. Even the group stages, we saw such a huge difference in terms of quality out of Heaven, and that's not something that Almighty can afford if they do make it on to stage 5, if they do have a LAN event where the boys actually need to sit down at a physical spot and play. 174 to 154, a 20-point deficit for the Indonesian Garudas. For them to make their way back in this hard point now is going to be impossible, of course. They have to wait for the reset, but earlier on, Almighty showed them how to rock this first hard point already. Take over the second floor of Mana and then conquer, and then send in that one objective player. If you've got an XS1 Goliath, might be a decent point to drop, but a simple Pretty can automatically annihilate that XS1 Goliath. So that's going to be a huge problem as well. So you have to just play it with your own life here. But the players on the side of Dunya Games not sustaining their lives at all, and Almighty annihilates with Heaven whipping out his Annihilator.
Yeah, that's one thing about this map as well on Hardpoint. There's a lot of open spaces in there for the Preddy to be used, and I guess they're also saving up. Probably another turnaround might be happening with those Goliaths later on, but nothing's happening just yet in terms of investment. It's only Almighty that has a lot of those investment to them, and there's no point to use it this early into the fight. They are the lead in the points, and they will continue on. Probably not ending in this hill, but probably in the next one, because they are having, or Dunya Games is having a hard time catching up in there with more than 50 on the lead.
Oh, Almighty now, almost close to finishing the things off. Dunya Games opened up quite decently against Almighty, kind of keeping that pressure up. At the start, it was a dominant side of the Lion City representing Almighty, but Dunya Games managed to trade back up. At that P3, they made their way back into this matchup, but Almighty now leaving them high and dry. 50 seconds to go though at this P2. If Dunya Games can hold on to every single point, we'll see the Garudas back in this matchup. But if Shut Up wins out all of these engagements, he gets a little bit of backup, there might just be a huge possibility that Almighty puts this to rest, but that doesn't happen. Not when Jetsky is present. Jeff Pro says, get out of here, bro, it's my hill. Gonzi steps right back up, back and forth. Almighty on the right hand side and observation through their spawns, and you've got Dunya Games spawning out of statue. Almighty has got the game of numbers here. They bash their way in. 17 seconds to go, almost close to finishing this game off, and Incendio is on fire.
Yeah, Incendio in the membrane, and they're going in, but Fancy Konzi will be moving in, but will be taken down by Irfan J once again. Now, they've lost that opportunity to close the gap in here, and we are moving in onto the next hill. Warehouse will be that next hill. Now, the Goliath will be pulled out right in time just to overtake and to make sure that they get that final 9 points that they need to take the win in this hard point, AJ.
Chat's having an argument on whether or not Mustachio's Indian or Mustachio's Malaysian. I am Malaysian Indian, la brothers. 247, 250. Dunya Game says, please hold up. Almighty says, sorry, bro. Sit down. We take the dub. Let's move on to SN. You know that you are super gifted. You know you're super lucky if you're the team owner or whoever who's investing into these little boys out there on the battlefield, because they take the initiative to make sure they patch up any sloppy gameplays. Now, Almighty, they had Heaven doing the exact same thing. From shining purely in SNDs, which yes, they do win championships, he went on to shine in these respawns as well. And he's now an almighty dominator out there on the battlefield. Regardless of what sort of game mode you throw him into, he's still gonna shine.
And that's one reason why in all this fights that we've seen, it seems that jumping in on the playoffs doesn't necessarily have only one MVP. It trades off from game to game, from mode to mode, because of how well it has been distributed in this lineup
nice
for the teams. Now, good grenades right now in there being pulled and take down in there from afar. That was Incendio who started that.
Bro, that was so beautiful. I tell you, the distraction, the setup of that initial engagement into basketball court was a thing of perfection out of Almighty. They smoke out the front of safe room, and then Incendio tosses out those stuns and flashes. The stun connects at the very perfect moment inside of basketball court, allowing Incendio to string that through with a kill. And Dunya Games struggling at the get-go. Almighty, what did you have for breakfast? Fran says, calm down, I can still win this. Irfan J kicks him into the next round. Almighty starts off strong.
But before Fran jumped in, I mean, that was Heaven getting 3 kills already in that game. Initiating that fight was Incendio, and then Heaven popping off. It isn't left to Fran in there to defend, but against 3 members, that's a little bit too much. And as we can see the rotations right now, Defenders is in a little bit deep in here from the side of Gonzi. Might be a little bit too close, but might be taken down as well from behind, depending on how it will be pushed right now. But there you have it. Gonzi taking down Incendio.
Defending side of Dunya Games now, stacking mid. Central Garden has got 2 of their players as they push on over towards the swimming pools. Open stance, beautiful slay onto Shut Up. Gonzi gets it with the KSP. And now, rotating around from the side of Pillars. You won't see Heaven, but Gonzi sorts him out. Gonzi's on fire this time around. Heaven's not going to be able to pop off. The game of numbers now on the side of Dunya Games. And there's a high probability they string this into a victory as well. Irfan J, premature engagement as they try to rotate outside of basketball court. Catching one player inside of Gardens, snuffing him out instantaneously. And now they play the game of patience, waiting to fish out Dunya Games.
Yeah, and they will be seeing them a good bait and switch right now, but it will be turned around in there by Dunya Games. But Irfan J just clutched it on that 1v2. Now it's a 1v1 situation right now for this final moment, and this is Gonzi, and there's no fancying around this guy. Gonzi can be sneaky, can go for the backstab, but Irfan J, accuracy at its best. The Clutch King is still no breaks.
Oh yeah, boy. You can leave it to the Clutch King to clutch out those rounds. That's exactly what Irfan J is known for out there on MSP. The MSP circuit always has him popping off. Dunya Games this time round, absolutely no showing in the first 2 rounds, but fantastic engagements by Gonzi, keeping the team alive earlier on. Let's see if or not the team of Almighty can get this done yet again. A 7-0 might just be possible if Almighty continues this sort of an approach. But now the game of numbers. Incendio trades it out. Zeze drops heaven. Trading back out is Irfan J and Incendio, making this a 2v1. Zeze X with the snipe. No angles to play around with. And the attacking side of Almighty goes in for the plan. Incendio very sneaky. Zeze X now circling around. Will not miss. Will not get that shot because he just points his crosshair away from the player of Almighty. Irfan J with the timing a little bit off. Zeze X now with that backstab. It's all in the hands of Incendio, and he beautifully shuts down the final player. 3-0. Dunya Games struggling just a little bit.
Yes, Zeze has a good opportunity there to go in for that hit, but there's no oh yeah for Zeze just yet. I mean, we are seeing 3 points down already for Dunya Games. They need to take it slow. They need to play the game of Almighty to perfection for them to be able to get a point right now. But on the attack, it's a quick move right here onto Alpha or onto Bravo, as 3 members already hold this area of Square Center. Laundry will be taken by Zeze on the other side, and a good backup in there from this guy of Jet Sky. Good opportunity for Incendio to take a peek as well as a kill, but the information has been relayed. Fran still goes down, but Zen takes down Heaven into the play. Incendio still waiting, but on the other side, battle is happening, and it is now a 2v4 situation. Almighty in the lead.
2v4, make that a 4-0. Almighty, can they pull this off? Wrecking the players of Dunya Games. The Indonesian Garuda flying high up in the air. They forgot the Almighty is just a couple of steps above them. From the clouds, they strike down. Lightning, the sound of thunder ripping through the skies. And Dunya Games have no response whatsoever. Jet Sky still continues to struggle on the defensive. Dunya Games really hasn't managed to find an equal standing ground against Almighty just yet.
Good rotations right now for teams of Almighty to go in for the Russian Alpha, but they are not getting information just yet. A full stack in here on Alpha already, but a movement into mid area, and Zeze takes down Heaven, and Heaven will be reigning right now as we see the stacks against them in terms of numbers, but there's no turning back for 2 members. Irfan J and Jeff Pro is stuck in this bar. They need to start it off, and here comes Irfan J trying to go in with that grenade. Shot Up right now, I think they're waiting up on Shot Up because he has been disconnected, and he's back. Irfan J right now going in the move into the stairs, will try to go on for the Bravo push.
5v4, the numbers on the side of Dunya Games to finally pick up maybe their first round in this matchup against Almighty. But the angle held on by Irfan. Shut Up there, just way too sneaky. Slides away at the moment's notice of a little bit of danger. Gonzi playing the pillars to safety as well at Kitchen. All the players of Dunya Games just holding on to those angles perfectly.
And there we have it. Zen and Zeze in there for the backup. Incendio was able to go for the kill against Fran, but how much can this guy do? Not so much, because 4 is a lot for the team of Almighty to go in a solo. And there we have it, 1-4 on the scores. Dunya Games showing signs of life in this fight.
Just a little bit though. They need to still battle their way up to catch up with Almighty. 3 back-to-back rounds. Can they pull it off? Because on the attacking side later on, yes, they get to dictate the pace, but now on the defensive, still punished by Shut-Ups as AX down on the ground. And if they allow Almighty to run away a little bit more, then when Almighty moves into the defensive, life just gets easier, because all Shut Up and Heaven needs to do is just set up that double snipe angles and annihilate the players of Dunya Games as they make their way towards those bomb sites. So Dunia Games, they need to pick up as many as possible before they switch sides, but only one final round left, so this round is crucial for the Indonesians.
I would say it is really crucial for them. They need to make it work right now because once the table has been turned, it might be another difficulty that they will face later on. Incendio will be in here trying to hold the statue as they wait for laundry area, and no information will be relayed right now. Still good. They have the angle on towards the stairs. Gonzi.
Headshot.
I think there was a little bit of delay right there, but I think that was already a final kill at that moment.
Lagging, bro. 5-1. Dunia Games. Not just the game, but I feel like their minds are lagging just a little bit as well in terms of response time. Let's see if they can make a comeback in this matchup against Almighty, who are supreme. Shut up, Jeff Bro. Beautiful. Those back-to-back slays, but Jetsky and Gonzi trades them back. Incendio trades Jetsky. We're missing all of this engagement out there. Why? Gonzi, great shutdown onto Irfan J, but Incendio quickly trades him out. The game of numbers once again to the side of Almighty. They're on the defensive, and the attacking side, Zen, doesn't even have the bomb on him.
Yeah, Zen really needs to go in for the push, for the kill. Well, there's plenty of time to turn it around, double back, and get that bomb. Go into Alpha right now. Information relayed already, but Incendio going in for that tag. But still, he will be backing off. They will not be letting go of their sides of that bomb just yet. And that might be the end of Zen. But there you have it, taking in that bomb. But where will you be going? Will this be rotation? Will this be the rotation that Zen that can bring him for a clutch, or probably it was just a waiting game for Almighty at this point? Zen right now trying to peek in, getting information, nothing just yet. There goes the takedown. Zen brings it to a 1v1, AJ.
Oh, crazy stuff out there on the battlefield. 1v1 now. Zen really needs to win this out for his team. He's got the KSP in hand. Rotates around towards the basketball court. And I feel like that's the perfect one, but Shut Up looks the wrong way. And Zen was smart enough to take a look behind him, 180, and he shuts down Shut Up. 2-5. Dunia Game still has got a lot to do, but that's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start indeed. And I think what Zen did was a footstep bait in there against that final member. Thus, he was able to go in for the backstab. Now, Zeze right now, opportunity, but Shut Up. Well, don't just talk, just shut up.
Fantastic engagement. And Dunia Games from the get-go now, once again struggling. All thanks to the double side setup of Almighty, and Irfan J with a God nade. Heaven follows up with yet another God nade. What is going on? Almighty on fire. Fran and Zen trade them out, but Zen shut down by Clutch King Irfan J. 3v1. Fran the final survivor. And now the defending side takes over basketball court, waiting to welcome the final player of Dunia Games.
What?
And yes, that's a great engagement. Fran with a double, but Incendio takes him out, and match point after the defusal. Almighty, what a dominating run against Dunia Games.
I mean, though the initiation as well as the trade back is being done in there by Dunia Games, and they're just lost in there when it comes to that final moment. Losing a lot of lives early in the engagement, the speed that they're taking this on, they start it off hot, thus they also end it with a few lives to their side. In the numbers game, usually in favor of Almighty, not looking good for them. Heaven starts it off against Jetsky, and Heaven is higher than the sky.
Let's see if or not he can take it up even higher with his gameplay. 5v4. The numbers don't look all that too exciting on the side of Dunia Games. They're trying to fight back and try to equalize against Almighty. But they need 4 back-to-back rounds just to find that equalizer. Is this even going to be possible, as they've just been dominated in the hardpoint as well as S&D? Almighty once again wants to take it all the way, and potentially this time around represent Garena. Represent Garena at that stage 5. And represent the Lion City as a whole, and show them, even though low in numbers when it comes to the number of teams out of the nation, they still have got supreme quality. Shut Up with a beautiful headshot. Secondary backs away as he gets tagged up. Beautiful stun as well played. Shut Up slows down. Zeze X shuts down Jeff Pro. Beautiful engagements back and forth, but only Zeze X now to complete all of this, and Heaven puts him down on the ground. 7-2. Almighty dominates Dunia Games. We will continue the storyline of the day. It is now an impending explosion and annihilation. Dunia Games, the Garudas, are about to come crashing as the Almighty team now look to strike them down from Heaven. And yes, Heaven himself is in this matchup, and he is on one of his best days out there on the battlefield. He's chugging out all of the kills. He's chugging out all of those rotations. He's on the snipe. He's on the KSPs. He's just doing so much for the side of Almighty. But I totally forgot, Avnish. I was going to give you guys a flying kiss. I'm sorry. When I get back to camera in a little bit, I will. Okay, I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, that is what excitement is here, because the battle is going to unfold, and it's unfolding right now. And the flying kiss, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have given you the love already, and you can give them back. Actually, you're giving them the love back, AJ. I mean, communicating with the community really is a good thing, especially even if we are in here casting and providing the great show for the teams. And this is one thing that I love about this guy, the Pistachio AJ. I mean, he loves everyone in this COD community.
I most definitely do, bro. I mean, people keep asking me, right, like, what sort of energy drink do I take? How do I keep my energy levels up? How do I, bring the hype non-stop? It is through all of the love that the community shows me and gives me that I absorb in my heart. And all I want to do is just give them the very best. And that's similar to what Almighty is doing out there on the battlefield as well. They're absorbing the love that the community gives them. They're shoving it in the faces of Dunia Games. Such a dominating opener here as Almighty sneaks in here for the defense. A 3-life deficit, make that 4, but Dunia Games doesn't care, because a single hole by Jetsky at that B control point with ZZX having his back, overextending just a little bit to make sure nobody can step on forth and take away his hold from him and take his brother down. That gives Dunia Games 1 control point. Now, the A control point is the harder one to secure at Slums. Let's see how the Indonesians pull this off.
Yeah, I think Bravo was already intentionally being given by Almighty, because they have prepared already a setup on the hardest point in this map, and Irfan J and the rest of the teams will just be waiting for Dunia Games to rush in and lose their lives. They're doing right now. It is a 5-life deficit as Gonzi steps in and backs out right in time before being taken down. And good chance for him. There goes Irfan J being taken down. But still, the point of the lives of Almighty is far from Dunia Games, and all they have to do, take it slow and take that control to a different level.
Yeah, so for all of you guys who are curious as to what technical investigation was going on in the background, at that hardpoint matchup, Dunia Games did manage to break the hill for a few moments, but when they did break the hill, unfortunately, there was a little bit of a lag in the system where it was not giving them the points. But upon investigation, upon rewinding the footage and checking, the number of points that Dunia Games could have collected, even though that bug was not there, would have been quite dismissible, as Almighty had quite a bit of dominance in that hardpoint matchup. So that was the main investigation. And since we have brought that down to a close, we have also given Almighty a stand on their victory. Nothing changes in the series, but obviously, with each and every single one of those complaint slots, we want to look into them seriously and make sure that everybody out there has got an equal playing field against each other. And that's something that I absolutely love Garena for. Thank you for making sure everybody out there is attended to whenever they do raise their hands and say that, hey, I think something is wrong. But Dunia Games, they will still have to fight their way back in here, Neptune. That first round, although it got quite close, they got slain out. And now with Almighty on the attack, they're slaying out Dunia Games even before getting to those control points to snatch them away.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of mechanical skills of Almighty that they have, that they can take down the points already low from the sides of Dunia Games. And then later on, once the plan has been triggered, all they have to do is take that strongest or that easiest point and then put it to their favor, stopping the time, getting them most of the kills, as well as they head on to Alpha later on. 25 to 19, as you can see, only losing 5 lives in the process. And this is what we're talking about. When a team takes it slow, you will not be wasting all those lives. You can invest on them, on the utilities, pretty much as what we're seeing from Incendio right there with Annihilator.
9 life deficit, thankfully made into 8 by ZZX and his long-range snipe. Once again, B control point to take it away, very easy. A control point, this is where trouble starts. And now, Dunia Games can just lock on those angles and wait for Almighty to bring those gunfights straight towards them. Gonzi can invest on that Annihilator, but doesn't make the mistake of prematurely bringing it out. And Dunia Games, they slay back and forth, and now a 4-life deficit on the defending side. Heaven trying to keep that to a 5. Good trade back from Gonzi to shut down Heaven. And Dunia Games, 1 more minute to go. It's a lot for Almighty to work with, so they just have to be a little careful.
Yeah, so far in this gunfight, it's not so much from Dunia Games showing up. ZZX, the one getting all of the kills, mostly from the distance. And that's one thing that Dunia Games needs to put into play. They need to keep the distance and give out the snipers for those kills later on and giving them the lives advantage.
Oh, yeah.
Irfan J right now slowing it down as they just cut off the approach. Even if they are on the attack, I mean, they are the ones holding those points perfectly.
I mean, Dunia Games better step things up, man, because when I was asked who do I think is going to get to the grand finals, I happily named them. Now, usually my predictions are on point, but Dunia Games making me bite my tongue a little bit now, bite my little lips as well, because I'm super nervous, man. They're getting toasted out there by Almighty. 5-life deficit on the defense now for Dunia Games. Almighty taking the fight up to them, and a 4-life deficit isn't going to allow Dunia Games to really get crazy out there on the battlefield. They need to win all of their gunfights, and with that takedown onto Incendio, Jet Sky making sure he drinks this on along well. Dunia Games, they cannot lose any more lives out there on the battlefield. Long rotation by Heaven, who is punished. All equalized now. Nice. Dunia Games, 5 more seconds, have to keep Almighty back. Irfan J makes his way in, and that's done and dusted. The Indonesians pull that round away with 2 seconds left on the clock. They slay out Almighty.
And that was a good reversal being done by Dunia Games. They slowed it down, not really rush into the sights of Almighty, and they took advantage of the time because it's Almighty need is to step into that hill, into that point to stop the time. And even if they had the lead, if they can plan approach of waiting for Almighty and taking them down later on, they can take a lead in terms of the lives. And that is what Dunia Games is planning right now. They have a 1 life deficit, make it 2, and they are still on roll. This time, it is attackers, Dunia Games, making the play.
Oh, head glitch played to perfection against ZAX. Irfan J now from the back. Quick scope does not hit. Irfan steps in front of him, scares him a little bit as well. You could see the crosshair shaking a bit as he pops out of nowhere, takes that slay. Irfan J back and forth. He just darts around the battlefield, picking up kill after kill. And the players of Dunia Games are having such a tough time dealing with him. Now, Dunia Games, a great push into that B control side, managing to pull away 1 quadrant already, but they circle around. The pressure is not there from the Indonesian side as they only have a single player after a single player heading on into control without holding on to Graves. Now, if you do not have one player overextend and hold Graves, you are not going to pull away that B control point so easily. With a 1-life deficit, this looks like it's going to be tough, but Heaven with that backstep Annihilator wasted as all he gets is a single kill.
Yeah, and as we see, Dunia Games take over Bravo right now. Everyone will be forced to secure Alpha from the Almighty side. They need to get good positions, and Incendio just rushing it a little bit too quickly in that fight. And we've seen great strides being done by Dunia Games right now. Earlier, not so much on the killing department, but this time they have the advantage, double digits from them. And I'm surprised, Jeff Pro not so much as he is just on 8 kill right here. And this is damaging for Almighty right now. The Slayer cannot put in the slay, thus the lives will be a little bit more on well, this time it's 6 points on the life deficit, but performance of Jeff Pro, really, it's one thing that we need to see in popping off in Control Agent.
And here comes Incendio pushing his boundaries. And I really do not understand why they get aggressive when they pull out some of these operators, right? Just waste it. But they know that they've got the slaying capability against Dunia Games. Even though they are on the defense, Almighty pushes Dunia Games back, almost spawn trapping them and managing to pull away the 3rd round. And now, Dunia Games, on the other hand, they are on the defensive. Let's see how this pans out for for them, because all they need to do is just lock down those angles just like they did earlier on, but pay a little bit more attention towards that B control point, because obviously that's going to be the first spot Almighty runs in for.
Yeah, that is the advantage that they can take to get all the lives that they need to take the advantage. And then later on, once everyone is heading to Alpha, if Bravo will be given away, that they a little bit close in there in terms of life, but it will be even out and also taken over by Dunya Games right now with a simple mistake that Almighty has done.
2-1. Incendio slays back and forth. Dunya Games on the brink of annihilation if they do not get control of this control matchup, no pun intended, with a 2-life deficit. You know that they are struggling. They are on the defense, and yet they are allowing Almighty to trade lives with them as Almighty makes their way forth to pull away all of those points. B control point not dealt with at all. No defensive maneuver by Dunya Games. This has got to be a little disappointing as they step up front. They get annihilated. Instead, 3 players on that B control point, and nothing Dunya Games can do about this to make sure they do not lose it.
Yeah, that's one thing that Dunya Games is doing, is probably save on the lives, because later on, earlier, that is where they made that switch up. If you save lives, you may be able to take advantage of that on the defense if you pull everyone on Alpha. And all Almighty needs to do right now is slowly rush in to stop the time. Even if they have the lead on the lives, ZZX might be able to turn that around with 1 or 2 kills later on, thus rushing Almighty towards that next point. But a little bit of aggressiveness coming in from Dunya Games, and we'll have to see if that's trading off. Not quite sure who Almighty is facing right now, but they are making those small mistakes and also losing that advantage.
And as long as Dunya Games can, I don't want to say keep this up, but they really need to improve FHJ shutdown onto Heaven by Zeze. That is just back-to-back by Zeze as he whips out the right-tech AMR, goes to town with the players of Almighty. But Jeff Pro, crazy investment of the XS1 Goliath. But this is not hard point. You need to move towards that capture point, towards that A control. Jeff Pro sprays down, gets the wall bang onto Gonzi as well. Turns around, Fran backs away. Good engagement, but now they can confidently push in with the XS1 to pull away this A control point. What sort of a solution does Dunya Games have for this XS1? A double stun will slow it down, but wallbang still will annihilate Gonzi. Zeze has no option. Annihilate is shut down. 5-5. Make that 5v4. Dunya Games loses their life. A control point almost out of their hands. Zen gets a double. This is so scrappy, but Almighty with 2 more lives. What a matchup we've got on our hands.
It's a good play that has been done by Dunya Games right now. They really don't rush in, waste those lives, and thus Almighty really risk that like Goliath for their play. But it was a little bit too far, as well as going solo. Even with the Goliath, you will be taken down. And for the roamers of Dunya Games, they can just take advantage of the focus onto that Alpha and get the slays. So far, it's tied right now 2-2. But as we can see, Almighty on the defensive side, we'll have to see what attack can Dunya Games bring in here, because so far the attackers are in at bay and the defense is still working at it for those wins.
Oh, shut up, an Incendio opening up big against the players of Dunya Games. And now, as Dunya is on the attack, Zen goes in for the investment onto the Annihilator. Annihilates shut up halfway through, spots out yet another one, but the slide is just too quick. Zeze finishes him off with the secondary. Incendio punish, and now this is that B control point that Dunya Games wants to invest all of your members in here for. And from the back, the players of Almighty, they are trying to pretty much pull off a spawn trap, not allowing Dunya Games to get anywhere close to the B control point or past Memorial for that A control. As long as Dunya Games can focus their players onto one side of the map, they're going to have the advantage here against Almighty, who are underestimating their plays. But Dunya Games is not going in for a one-sided attack.
Yeah, and Almighty has drawn the line right now, and anyone who steps over will be slain. 10 lives deficit already against Almighty, and it's not looking good for Dunya Games, though they might be able to go in for this Bravo push. They are still pushed back into the spawns, thus losing that advantage. Also losing the lives. Jetsky a little bit too aggressive at this point, might be running into a trap, and it's a good thing that they're all together. They might be able to go and defend them, but as we can see right now, 16 seconds stop, not so much on the lives being turned over by Dunya Games.
Oh, but Dunya Games now showing some signs of life, but Heaven says, get the heck out of here. Slays out 3 players back to back. Make that a 4 combo, annihilating Dunya Games. The Garudas fall, and from the height that they usually fly, this fall gotta hurt. 3 more seconds to go. Almighty serves up onto a pause. Jet Sky shows the size of life once again, but with 2 lives, what can you do? 1 second. Almighty hands over a hot fresh donut to Dunya